5 years ago, it wasn't even a dream. I'd never given much thought to visiting Poland or trying to find my family's ancestral town. So much has happened in these few short years, all leading up to the day when I would make this trip to research my family's 19th century roots. Why did I come to Ostrów Mazowiecki? What did I find? What do I know now that I didn't know before? What drew me to Poland and Ostrów Mazowiecki was a search, a rather unusual one. The search for my extended family who, like me, carry the beta thalassemia genetic trait. As each day passed, there were touching moments, exciting discoveries, and lasting impressions. This is the outskirts of town, and we're going to pan around to the Motel Mazowiecki, and also now pan to the side of the road where the mushroom sellers are working. Now, the people here in this area of Poland pick the mushrooms and then stand by the side of the road selling them. And over there you'll see Krzysztof Malczewski actually purchasing some mushrooms. And we pan down the road again and we'll see my co-researcher Michael Richmond, our translator Karina, standing by the side of the road.
And people usually were lived near main market. It was such a proverb functioning in Polish language saying that, I mean, something that related to Polish-Jewish relations. Your houses, our streets. It means that houses around central places in the cities belong to Jews, but streets and those who determined about the rule on the streets were Poles. But that's how it actually was, since Jews were very active in selling, buying, commerce. They tried to occupy places which were very close to business places.
Welcome to the Beta Thalassemia Genetic Research Project. Over the next 45 minutes, you'll be seeing the results of our visit to Poland, as well as videotape of some of the experiences we've had, some of the things we've seen, some of the records we've looked at, some of the people we've met. It's a combination of many different pieces of research that have led us to this particular point. Later on in the videotape, you'll hear more about what we've discovered. At this point, all I want to mention to everybody is that this is an exciting moment in my research, my family research, and my research in the genetic trait which my family carries, the beta thalassemia genetic trait. I hope you'll enjoy sharing with me some of the experiences that I've had here in Poland. Thank you. We're now videotaping in the office of the director of the USC, and she and Krzysztof Malczewski are busy calling various offices of the USCs in the area to see if they have done their homework. In fact, they have, whether or not they've replied to the letters which I wrote concerning the names of interest. Over on the other side of the office, we have Karina and Michael working on some of the records, trying to decide what a certain word might be. This is one of the difficulties in trying to translate the Polish records. What we're seeing now is Michael Richmond looking through the tenant registers of Ostrov Mazowiecki. As you can see, they're rather large books with an incredible amount of detail about the families that lived here in Ostrov Mazowiecki. We'll zero in on, take a quick look at what's written. Pardon the plant. The name Freund not only gets passed on into the Hoffman family, but it gets passed on into the Weingord family, into the Weingord family here. It gets passed on into the Videlitz family, the Freund here. So this pattern of naming is what enables us to find the connection between those families below and the families, original families up above. And that's why Michael Richmond's work is so interesting, because he has created a picture of the families, the early families. So when we start looking at the fact that there is a Freund who's the son of a Hirsch, who's the son of a Mush, all of a sudden we start saying, oh, that rings a bell. And that's why it's so, it's tedious, it's long work, as any kind of research is. But in order to be able to do what we're trying to do, we have to go through this tedious work. We have to go through all the indexes. Yeah, we have to look at the names and keep going and keep going. I mean, it's one of the most difficult things to do is to keep the interest going, but it's a challenge. Here we've illustrated the ancestors and the ancestral chart in various colors, and it indicates the possible sources of the genetic trait. All the different colors are an indication of the various sources. We go from my father, from up here, to my grandmother, to her father, or to her mother, and their ancestors. In every case, there's a different color because we don't know whether the source of the genetic trait is either my great-grandfather Yankel Videlitz or my great-grandmother Sora Novus.
What is he saying?
You know, now we are discussing the number of Jews that live here on the Second World War. Because
this is from 81 status. Yeah.
I've got the number of 7,000 Jews living here.
When? What year?
In 1939, and that figure comes from Judaica Encyclopedia. And this guy does not question this figure. He says that it was more.
Too conservative. He said there were many more.
Oh yeah.
Many more.
Yeah.
So if you want to calculate 7,000 into families, assuming then one family combined of 50 persons.
7,000 people or 7,000 families?
7,000 people.
Ah.
So it is 140 families.
Yeah.
So he can't remember all names. That's why
of course he can, yeah, but we don't know.
I wouldn't expect him to, but I thought it's not a common name that he might have remembered it.
But you see, if we check in tenants list, we can check every single street.
That's
That's
right.
what we are going to do.
That's important to me, yeah.
That's a treasure. That was
Yeah.
going to be a treasure.
This lady is going to arrange for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Proszę pana, według mojej oceny
According to my estimate,
to Żydów przed wojną było ponad 11 tysięcy.
there were more than 11,000 Jews
A chyba licząc naokoło
before
te wsie
Second
wszystkie.
World War.
No
Proszę
We wsi ich nie było dużo.
Nie było?
Na wsi nie było.
And the Jews
20
usually
lat.
gathered in Status,
W 20 latach,
in Ostrów Mazowiecka, not in adjacent area.
w 20 latach specjalnie burmistrz Ostrowi wystąpił do ministerstwa, a wtedy był Sławoj
Can
Składkowski
you translate for me what he's
Once you
saying?
finish.
ministrem spraw
Let him get to the
wewnętrznych.
point, yeah. That because of the imbalance,
they
there was
wanted to
majority of
improve
Jewish
the-
things. They created another,
Tyre district,
Tyre
yeah.
district, yeah.
And the mayor of the city used his private link that
Link
he
to
had with the state of government.
Yeah, because they used to
And
play
he
cards
applied
together.
for
with
his
Koski and
permission to
Krakau.
incorporate adjacent
Yeah,
area
yeah.
into the city area. Just
When was this? What year?
w którym roku zostały przyłączone te sąsiednie
No
gminy?
Składkowski to gdzieś w 30 latach musiało być,
Ale
nie?
on był wówczas ministrem spraw wewnętrznych, a później został premierem.
Aha.
Premierem.
A kiedy-
To było w latach 26, 27.
26, 27. Mhm.
In when? 1926?
1926,
How old is he?
Ale jeżeli panów to
No, he was not
interesuje w
born
ogóle
before.
życie,
A w którym roku się pan urodził?
24.
1924.
That's when
To
he was
proszę
born.
panów, nie wiem czy panowie wiedzą, że w Izraelu
Aha.
ostroski Żyd Margulis wydał książkę na temat historii Żydów ostroskich.
There's a book by a Jew who
On mnie
survived. His name is
przesłał tą.
Margulis.
On
He wrote a
mnie-
book about the story of people of Ostrov, and he said he sent him. On pan tą książkę przysłał?
To znaczy on mnie przysłał, ponieważ
sent
ona
that
była w połowie w języku żydowskim, a w połowie hebrajskim. Ja wysłałem do Warszawy do kolegów, żeby mnie cośkolwiek przetłumaczyli. I zginęła.
He has that book?
No, because half was Yiddish and half was Hebrew. So he sent it to some friends in Warsaw. They should translate, and they lost it. So.
He probably refers to the book
Pinker.
known Sefer HaZikaron
I think so, yeah, yeah.
Ostrów Mazowiecki.
Yeah.
It was published in Hebrew and
in
Yiddish
Yiddish,
in
yeah.
1960s.
He
So
doesn't.
there is a book like
He
that.
doesn't remember the name
Of the
Videlitz.
No,
Yeah,
Videlec.
he doesn't remember Videlec.
We'll find it
Remember,
in the archives.
If
Not in
there were just only 7,000 people, and assuming that each family consisted of just 50
But
persons.
he was a teenager before
So,
the war.
although it was
człowiek
300, no, 200, 140 families, so it's hard to remember. We know for sure that such family existed.
We know that
here.
wiemy, że jedna rodzina taka była do wojny.
No, tak.
Myśmy znaleźli w aktach. Troje dzieci
Widelec,
mieli,
tak?
Widelec,
Więc
dokładnie
proszę
Widelec.
panią, w tej książce on prowadzi historię ostroskich Żydów, nie kończąc na 1935 roku. Jednocześnie historię
Aha.
ich
Tak.
już w czasie działań
You
wojennych.
should try to get that book because he said not only the story of the current Jews, but also the whole historical past. People which were living there through
And
centuries.
that book is printed in Hebrew.
Hebrew and in Yiddish in
It was,
Israel.
you know, in
His butcher shop from before the war.
O, i tu od razu w prawo. O, ten murowany po lewej stronie to jest właśnie Jadka.
You see that brick house?
To jest przedwojenna oryginalna.
that's original pre-war
War.
butcher shop.
Jewish butcher shop. Was built in 1903, that building, and it still stands.
The date stays on top of the building.
Yeah, 1903.
This is 29 Warszawa Street, the home of Alan Draws's relatives. It's on the main highway leading into the town of Ostrov Mazowiecki. There's my co-researcher, Michael Richmond, taking a photograph. We're now on the corner of Rozhanska and Warszawa streets. Warszawa, of course, is the main road to Warsaw. And we're panning up Rozhanska Street. According to the records, Yankel Videlec was living at number 6 Rozhanska Street before the war, and when the war started, before he emigrated to North America. And this is what appears to be number 6 Rozhanska Street. It is now a dermatological clinic. I don't know how old this building is and whether or not it might have been the home of Yanko Videlec, my father's first cousin. We are at number 26 Ostrolenka Street. This was the home of Abba Videlec. Abba Videlec, or Abraham Videlec, born in 1894, was killed in a bus accident near Brock when the bus plunged into the little lake off the Bug River, Bug River. This is the story that was told to us last night, recalled to us last night, by the blacksmith and the other gentleman from Korenga.
That is an old, did you say a yeshiva or a,
school.
just a Jewish school?
Probably day school.
It isn't anymore, that's pretty
No, to jest
obviously.
prywatny dom, nie?
To jest prywatny dom, tak.
Now people live here.
I wtedy był, bo to był Gryglasewskiego.
Aha, it was a private home then, but they rented for this.
Tylko on był wynajem-
We're now visiting the cemetery of Ostrov Mezvietsk. This is our driver, Krzysztof, and he's leading us to the old cemetery. This is actually the new cemetery of the two. We've already passed the old cemetery. This is the road, or the path that we're taking down to the cemetery. I'm going to catch up to our guide and Alicia, the head of the Civil Records Office and the registrar of Ostrov Mezvietsk, who is accompanying us to the cemetery. The forest which we see before us, in fact, is the new cemetery of Ostrov Mezvietsk. We're now walking down the path leading directly into the cemetery. This is the actual part of the cemetery where there were stones. What you see here are in fact empty graves, or graves that have sunk in. Krzysztof is now trying to strip away some of the growth over the stone to see what, if anything, can be revealed.
Or just bases for?
This is the stone that's partially stripped away. It appears to be the back of a stone as opposed to be the front with the writing. You can see as we pan the numerous holes in the ground from graves that have sunk in or from grave robbers who, it is reported, were looking for things in the graves which they thought might be of value, not recognizing, of course, the Jewish tradition is not to bury anything of value with the body and return the body to God as it was born.
Tutaj penetrowali, nie?
O, tu niech pan, ten na pewno jest przewrócony, bo on jest gładki i nie ma napisów. Pewnie gdyby, wie pan, jakby ktoś się zajął tym i to wszystko zebrał.
This one for sure bears some writings, but it was pulled to this, it was pushed aside.
Yeah.
So now it's too heavy to lift it because writings are on opposite side. The side which is to the soil. There was one with writings, but the guy, the small guy,
Bo i ten by ten trzeba by było
No, come closer so he can...
killed in this spot by Nazis on 11th November 1939, and it was
Community of
Our community.
Ostrov Mazowiecki, Poles, yeah,
Poles.
they put it, yeah.
What does it say on there?
In memory of 500 or 560 Jews from Ostrov which were murdered in this spot by Hitlerites, by Nazis, November 11, 1939, the community of Ostrov. The people of
The young lady doesn't want to be photographed. Tell her that she'll be famous all over the world.
One who can contact even other USC's manager, not only from this area. They can do it on the formal basis.
This is the main reading room of the Pultusk State Archives. It's a very attractive building, very comfortable to work in. A little cool today, but it'll warm up later in the day. And there's our wonderful Russian-speaking translator, Karina. Thank you, Karina. This is the room in the Pultusk Archives, which contain all the records from the area of the Lomzha Gubernia in which Ostrov Mazvietsk is located, and for all the towns in the area nearby. As you can see, there are substantial records. These are all the records that people say don't exist. Well, they certainly do, and we can see them ourselves right now. These here are the records for Ostrov Mazvietsk, all along this particular row here. Records for other towns in the area are along these shelves. These records include the birth, marriage, and death records, and also the marriage annexes, which are additional records to the marriage records. Today I saw for the first time my grandparents' marriage record and the annex, which I will have a copy of at some point. We're now looking for the records for Brock. Brock is a small town not too far from Ostrov Mazvietsk, and reportedly has the records for the town of Poremba, in which my family lived. When I say my family, my grandparents and their two young children prior to emigrating to the United States around 1888.
Here are files for Zarendy Kościelne, also a place which was marked with the presence of your relatives. Those are here. Zarendy Kościelne. Remember discussion we had in the car while driving to
my co-researcher and the world's leading expert
on the records of Ostrov Mazowiecki, Mr. Michael Richman of Washington, D.C.
Trying to read Russian.
Trying to read Russian, he says, and he's referring to Jonathan Shea's book, which occasionally is of great assistance in doing research.
Although there's a person across the table from me who's probably of much more help.
I think he's referring to our wonderful Russian-speaking, in fact, Georgian lady, Karina.
Was
Mother was dead его супруги Гаргавы, рожденной Бекар. You want those names, okay.
if we can get the mother's name, because there's two records.
We're now entering the archives area of the Jewish Historical Institute and going up the stairs, and at the top of the stairs on a table are the survivor lists, a record of Jews who registered after the war here in Poland. And this is where the books of the survivor lists are kept. And Michael Richman will hold open one of the books of the survivor lists, which obviously needs some focusing. So we're going to try to focus this. This is the glass case on one of the landings at the Jewish Historical Institute in Warsaw. It has a wonderful collection. According to Mr. Szymanski, the blacksmith, this is where Mordka Videlitz's blacksmith shop is located, very close to the central square of Ostrov Mazowiecki. We'll now pan and take a look at where we are located to the central square of Ostrov Mazowiecki. We can see the marketplace where visiting Russians are selling their wares. And this is in fact the center of town. And we'll be taking a pan view of the entire street area. It's now 8 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's going to work. getting ready for school.